Well, I'm hungry as it is, so I think we're just going to jump into some text. I think that way we can satiate ourselves on words of scripture. I guess today. I was thinking about last week and how we sort of spoke a little bit about how the Song of Songs, um, with the interpretation is that a lot of it has to do with God's relationship with Israel, and how the rabbis sort of played with that metaphor a lot. We didn't really delve into it that much. So I thought that this week, in addition to just reading the text, Stom the text, we could also delve into a little bit of some of that interpretation. That way you can judge for yourselves what you think. Sometimes the rabbis, it's a bit of a stretch to make erotic love poetry about God and Israel, but they give it a shot. Um, they give it a shot, and that I guess is worth something, right? Just give me 1 second. I'll share my screen. It's really have like 65 windows open. Which makes it a little more complicated for me. Just give me 1 minute here. I think we were up to the beginning of chapter 3, if memory serves, which it usually does. There we go. Okay. So as we mentioned last week, there's a lot of this seeking and finding in the text. So sort of the lovers are sort of looking for each other. That's a good portion of the story is that there's this longing, there's this desire, for each other, and they're lost and then they're found, so to speak. And so they have to keep on sort of looking and striving for each other. And so let's take a look at chapter 3, beginning with verse 1. Sharon, you want to begin here? You just got to unmute. The joys of Zoom. Yep.
Upon my couch at night, I sought the one I love. I sought, but found him not. I must rise and roam the town, through the streets and through the squares. I must seek the one I love. I sought, but found him not. I met the watchmen who patrolled the town. Have you seen the one I love? Scarcely had I passed them when I found the one I love. I held him fast. I would not let him go till I brought him to my mother's house, to the chamber of her who conceived me. I adjure you, O maiden of Jerusalem, by gazelles or by hinds of the field, do not wake or roast love until it please.
Thank you. Very nice. And so we see here again. This is a very emblematic, I feel like, passage here of the Song of Songs because it has that again, that seeking and finding, right? And so she's lonely. It's that night, and all of a sudden, her male companion is not here. And so there's no cell phones back then. You can't just text him, whatever it is. And so she's going out to search for him, to find him. She's rising and roaming through the town, looking desperately for the one that she loves. She asks the police officer on the corner, "Hey, have you seen, my boyfriend?" And no, I haven't seen him. And then, but just as she has this interaction, hey, she finds him. Mazel tov all around. It's a wonderful thing. And so she has him. She holds him tightly, and then brings him to her mother's house. There might be a bedroom there somewhere, one would guess. But that being said, she's going to bring him. It's not to meet the parents. I'll put it that way. Like, that's not what this is. It's not time to meet mom. That's not what this passage is implying. But so now they're there. They have some. They have some privacy, as we say in the UK. They have a little privacy, as opposed to privacy. This over here, verse 5. We saw this actually last week. We had the exact same verse. It repeats this idea of now it's taking a pause. So it's addressing now the other women in the world. Basically, it's addressing them and saying, don't wait. Don't be impatient with love. Right. So love is gonna come. but don't mess around with it. Just let it flow naturally. Don't rush it. Don't be impatient, whatever it might be, until it please. Okay, wonderful, interesting to start. Now, how are we going to make this jibe with the relationship between God and
Wow.
Israel? How does this work? So, I got some commentary here, and you're not going to see it as well because of the background that I have, but I'm going to try my best. There's a book. JPS has a Song of Songs commentary. And you can see it's a pretty darn thick book. It's a big book of commentary, as befitting, I think, such a complicated text. And so this book has a ton of really great commentary and interpretation, delving into the different midrashim, the different rabbinic interpretation, traditional rabbinic interpretation of the text, while also providing its own. And so, what I'm going to present to you tonight is from this book and the different meanings interpretations that they come up with from traditional rabbinic sources. So, for example, it says, "Upon my couch at night, I sought the one I love." So the rabbis say nights. That refers to the long, dark nights in Israel's history when they endured exile and oppression. Because when we're in exile and oppression, those are really dark, scary times. And we have to search. We have to find God, right? Because God is the one that we love. And so in these moments of exile, we feel distanced, from God. We don't feel that
Mhm.
same sense of connection. So we have to go out and try to look and try to find God in these moments when things are not going well. So that's where you have this next part, I must rise, right? They're determined to respond to the historical darkness. But the one that they love here is not only God, but it's about a leader. You have to search for a proper leader in order to bring them back to fulfillment, to bring them back into the light, because they can't do it by themselves.
Okay.
They have to roam, they have to search for somebody to help them. And so you think about Moses, right? Leading the people, after the Exodus from Egypt. So you have Moses, you have Daniel, community leader in Babylon, Ezra, Nehemiah, some of the prophets, Joshua. You have these different individuals that help lead the people out of their spiritual darkness and into a better situation. And then, of course, the ever humble rabbis would say that they themselves, during the
Mhm.
rabbinic period, right, as a guiding light for the people when they're dwelling in darkness. And so you have here up top on verse 3, I met the watchmen, right, who patrol the
Mhm.
town. They say the watchmen are like leaders from like the tribe of Levi, not just genes, but the tribe, here of Levi. They're the ones who are helping to guard God's teaching. They guard and oversee the people while also guarding and imparting the Torah and tradition, right? Got a message here. Oh, Bonnie, I'm sorry you have to go. Hope all's okay. I can't hear you. You're on mute.
I apologize. I have a phone call that I have to get. If it's over quickly, I'll come back.
Okay, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Hope everything's okay. Okay. So, they guard and oversee Torah and party tradition. Mother's house. We had that sort of interesting phrase, right, of mother's house.
Yeah.
Here it's talking about Sinai, according to the rabbis, right? Because Sinai is where the people are conceived, right? Sinai is the place of spiritual birth for the people. And the chamber then could be the Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting. So it's referring to these different places in Israelite history where it might make sense to relate to these phrases. So, do we buy that as the original text's meaning? Nah, I don't think so. I don't buy that as the original text's meaning, but it makes a nice story. It makes a nice story, right? So like that helps clean this up a little bit. Take it from TVMA to a little bit more of a G-rated or at least PG-rated tale here. If it could be about God and Israel, so we're gonna
But
look at a few more of those. Yeah, Sharon.
it's kind of comforting, though, to hear it about Israel and God in the dark times, because we are in some pretty dark times now. And hopefully our love for God will, well, it seems so symbolic because it seems like so many people have no ethics, no morals today. So I hope that God will find the right leaders to take us out of this dark time.
We could use a little bit of a little
Yeah.
more guidance. That is certainly true.
Yeah.
It's more leadership. I think that's 100% right, and that's how they actually frame this "I adjure you, O maidens," piece that we had before. That the nation has to, prepare itself and show some spiritual fortitude. But again, being patient, not rushing into things because maybe that gets into a wrong direction, a wrong path. But hopefully, you get someone of some good standing, some moral clarity, some courage and perseverance that helps get the people to a better place, to lead them to a better place than where they are at the moment. Nicely done, nicely read. Leah, you want to start reading next?
Okay, so where do I start?
Right here on 6.
Okay. Who is she that comes up from the desert like columns of smoke and clouds of myrrh and frankincense, of all the powders of the merchant? There is Solomon's couch, encircled by 60 warriors of the warriors of Israel, all of them trained in warfare, skilled in battle, each with sword on thigh because of terror by night.
Okay, right there is perfect. Thank you for that. So this is our next sort of 3 verses here. Desert, of course, desert's always going to have connotations, right, for the Israelites, because we spend so much time in the desert. It's a lot of time schlepping around the Sinai. I mean, my goodness. So whenever you see desert, there's always going to be at least an easy allusion to biblical history. So the desert, they note, is a place of transition, right? It's a liminal place. It's a place of transition between Egypt and the Promised Land, right? So if you think about Israelite history, at least in the Torah, right? You have Eretz Canaan, you have the land of Israel, and you have Egypt, either way, you have those 2 places where the bulk of our story is to be told, but that's in the middle, right? It's in the wilderness. That's where we have most of the Torah. That's Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, are all in the desert, and there are other parts in. Hi, Benji. We have bang on the door. And so we have here the idea of the desert that can mean a place of transition. The desert, it's a fascinating study. It really is. I mean, when you study the Torah itself, so talk about what is the significance of Bamidbar, of being in the wilderness, because we know the significance of the other 2 places. Mitzrayim, Tsar, is a place of sorrow. It's a place of distress. It's a place of narrowness. That's where the root comes from. It's actually between the rivers, right? And so Mitzrayim is a place of distress, right? It's a place of Mitzrayim. It's a place of our source is Mitzrayim, right? It's not a good place to be. We want to be out of Egypt. The Promised Land, self-explanatory, right? Land of milk and honey. That's where we're supposed to be. So the struggle is, how do we get from the place of distress, the place of Surus, to the place of the Promised Land, the milk and honey, where we're supposed to be, right? The homeland. The only way to get there is through Midbar. It's through the desert, right? And so this desert is this very ambiguous place because we're not supposed to be there. We're supposed to be in Eretz Canaan. But the desert is important because there we learn moral lessons. There we learn teachings. It also stinks. It's also a place of danger as well, right? Because we get chopped up in the wilderness, right, by bad guys there too. It's not a great place. There's crying, there's moaning, there's kvetching, there's complaining. There's not enough food, there's not enough water, there's no cable, there's no Wi-Fi signal. There's a lot of problems in the desert, right? It's not what you want. It's not where you want to be, but it's better than Mitzrayim. It's better than Egypt, right? And so there's a lot of byplay there, and it makes you think of relationships. And you go back, is that sometimes relationships feel like the most beautiful, perfect thing in the world. It's the promised land when you're in love, in a loving relationship. It's home, right? Your partner is home. It's where you want to be. It's with that person. Sometimes relationships stink, and they're Mitzrayim, and they're stressful, and they're depressing, and they're awful, and they're burdensome, and you just got to get out. You want to exodus out of that relationship as fast as you can because it's not working for one or both of you. But a lot of times, it's midbar. It's the middle. Sometimes there's great stuff. Midbar is where we get Torah, right? We get Torah at Mount Sinai, right? By Midbar is where we get revelation, is where we receive our spiritual birthright, right? It's in the wilderness. But it's also where we're wandering with no water and no food. And we're fighting against different, bands of tribal leaders, right? And different tribes trying to kill us. And where there's plague sometimes, and where there's famine, and where there's others not so great stuff. Relationships have their ups and downs, right? It's like sometimes it feels great, sometimes it feels not so great, sometimes it's a mixed bag. Sometimes it's good days, some days not so good. There are a few days that are perfect, and there are some days that are terrible. A lot of days are fine, a little up, a little down, and that's part of it, right? Unless every day with your beloved is like a promised land, that's very nice then as well. It's a wonderful thing. Okay, columns of smoke. We have this here, and here at least you can see some allusions to the Bible here. If you want to make that argument, at least you can see some parallels. So columns of smoke. There's a lot of smoke in the Bible. There's a lot of smoke with God's presence. God has pillars of smoke during the Exodus narrative, right, that blocks the Egyptians while the sea is split. So there's pillars of smoke there. Revelation has columns of smoke on Mount Sinai, and fire. The tent of meeting has smoke, a cloud of sort of smoke around it when the Israelites stay put, and it hovers above the tent when they're marching. So we have something that's can be fine, but they give a different direction to this as well, that as smoke rises to the air, right? That's like Israel, like rises heavenward, right? So just as smoke ascends to the heavens, Israel ascends to the heavens and communes with God, etc., etc. Okay, and so from the desert we ascend to the promised land. We make aliyah, right? We go up, we ascend, to where we're supposed to be. When you leave Israel, you make Yerida, you go down, right? And so Aliyah is when you move there. Yerida is when you leave Israel. You descend in holiness and spiritual presence. Okay, time for some fun vocab. Debbie Siegel, you want to read this little chunk here? You got to unmute.
Unmuted.
There you go.
Okay, section 9.
Right here, yep.
King Solomon made him a palanquin of wood from Lebanon. He made its post of silver, its back of gold, its seat of purple wool. Within, it was decked with love by the maidens of Jerusalem. O maidens of Zion, go forth and gaze upon King Solomon wearing the crown that his mother gave him on his wedding day, on his day of bliss.
Yay, very nice. So here we have some allusions to Solomon. As we mentioned last week, there was an idea in Rabbinic Judaism that Solomon wrote this whole thing. And since there's allusions to Solomon in the book, it helps a little bit. Makes no sense in terms of timeline or language, but nice anyway. So here we have this palanquin. Palanquin, great word here. So palanquin is basically almost like a litter in a way. If you imagine somebody being carried like on posts, and you have someone sort of sitting on top of it, so you don't have to walk. It's like for royalty, right? And so you're being carried by like 4 strapping, sort of men who are carrying, somebody down the streets to show that this person is exalted. If you note some of the materials here, silver and gold, purple wool, purple, very regal, a very beautiful color. You have some of these, you can stretch it to some allusions to the creation of the Ark of the Covenant and of the Tabernacle and of the Mishkan. These different things that were used to make, different materials are used to make the Mishkan. And so what they're going to do is they're going to take palanquin, which is, again, sort of more, it is a means of conveyance. It's sort of a lower level means of conveyance. But they're going to take that and say, that really refers to God's chariot, right? Because God, it rides in a metaphorical chariot. You think about, for those of you who have studied Greek mythology before, that there's allusions to gods, riding in chariots. Apollo, the god of the sun and whatever else it is, he rides his golden chariot. Zeus rides a winged chariot, and so this allusion to a chariot, at least as a metaphor, makes sense from a theological standpoint. That God, as a king and as a ruler, would have sort of a mighty chariot as well. We don't have to delve too deep, but for those who remember our studies last year of Ezekiel, there was some mentions of the heavenly chariot, et cetera, et cetera. So the chariot is usually used as a metaphor for God's presence, right? That God meets with us sort of in the heavenly chariot. There's actually a whole section of mystical literature that is called the works of the chariot. And so these are very old, very ancient, very esoteric pieces of literature, but it's called chariot literature, all about the heavenly divine chariot. And so it's about maybe encountering God as opposed to maybe somebody who is getting prepared for a marriage, right? So you have to imagine, again, a wedding where the groom and the bride, they walk down the aisle. Here, they're going to be carried down the aisle, right? And so they're saying, no, it's not about, a groom and bride sort of meeting. It's about Israel meeting God, right, in this moment. And the chariot that's there, this palanquin, can represent the ark, the tabernacle, the temple, Beit HaMikdash, where we encounter, we experience God, the whole wide world, maybe as well, right? And all that dwells within, we can meet God. And of course, the temple, Beit HaMikdash, up in the heavens as well, right? The holy temple that is in heaven, mirrored by the one that is on earth, right? And so we have different ways of sort of viewing, well, what does it mean to connect? What does it mean to find, search, and encounter the beloved? Whether the beloved is a physical, human being, as we have in the literal text, but here it's also, how do we meet God? Like where do we find God? And it's in these different places. And if nothing else, we've learned palanquin today. Always good to expand your vocabulary. I remember I had this rabbinic mentor. It wasn't a mentor. I mean, it was a rabbi that I knew. I was fresh out of seminary, a couple years out maybe of seminary, and we would have LIBOR meetings, Long Island Board of Rabbis, and we would sit together. And this one guy who was, God bless him, a bit of a blowhard. He used to do these meetings, and he always said, I remember he was giving a sermon seminar. That's what it was. It was a sermon seminar. And he looks at us and goes, every sermon I write, I always use one word that nobody knows. And that way they'll have to look it up and they'll know that I'm smarter than they are. Oh my God. This guy with a massive ego on him, but it shows some insecurity as well. So they have to know you're a scholar. You have to, use a word here so you can use palanquin now if you like to impress your friends. Okay. I don't know why that popped into my head, but it tickles me. Okay, so chapter 4, on to our next chapter. Since we've I'm sorry, I just hear Benji just screaming because Elizabeth's putting him to bed, and so I just hear him just really not amused right now. Okay, sorry. Chapter 4, Linda White, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
How you doing, Linda?
Okay.
You want to read a little love poetry?
Sure.
Okay.
You are fair, my darling. You are fair. Your eyes are like doves behind your veil. Your hair is like a flock of goats streaming down Mount Gilead. Your teeth are like flock of ewes climbing up from the washing pool. All of them bear twins, and not one loses her young. Your lips are like a crimson thread. Your mouth is lovely. Your brow behind your veil gleams like a pomegranate split open. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built to hold weapons, hung with 1,000 shields. All the quivers
Okay, here we go.
uh, of warriors. Your breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle, browsing among the lilies.
Thank you for that. And so in this text right here, you can again see, and it's fantastic because if anything didn't describe God's relationship with Israel, I think this piece is a pretty good indicator that was not meant to be what the metaphor or simile is here. Because here we have a lot of great similes. Um, and I mentioned last week, some of these don't really necessarily feel so flattering to a modern audience. But that being said, for back then, it was very nice. You know, your hair being a flock of goats might not exactly feel so complimentary right now, but back then it was nice. That if you think about goats, I'm guessing, okay, this is my extrapolation, but I'm assuming that if you had a flock of dark colored goats, right, and they were sort of cascading down a mountainside, sort of like hair cascading down in a way. Your teeth are as white as sheep. Your fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, right? So these are the ewes, right? These are the sheep that are climbing up. They just got bathed, right? They just got scrubbed down, whatever it is, and now all clean. So your teeth are as white as sheep, as white as the ewes that are coming. Lips, a little easier, crimson thread, sort of smaller, I guess, thin lips. Mouth is lovely. Your brow, again, forehead, I'm not really sure what this means, but your forehead gleams behind your veil. If you have a shiny forehead, is that good? I feel like there are a lot of makeup products which you don't have a shiny forehead, but nonetheless, here we are. So you had the forehead gleams like a pomegranate split open. Last week we had mentioned, in addition to the Israeli, place names and sort of allusions to the seasons, that there's also a little bit about the produce, right, as well. So pomegranate, very a major one of the seven species, in Israel. And so pomegranates are very much associated with the land of Israel and bounty, right? It's seen. I'm only thinking about this because my oldest one right now, Ari, he discovered pomegranates like last month. Like maybe 6-8 weeks ago, he's discovered pomegranates. He's going through one pomegranate a day. We give him half in the morning, and literally like in 10 minutes it's gone. I mean, the whole thing he just goes through it. And I'm like, it's like $4 a pop, kid. Can you chill a little bit? These like big pomegranates, and you're just pounding them down like nothing. Now the baby's eating it too. But they have all those seeds right inside, and 613 commandments we have. It's supposed to be for the 613 seeds in a pomegranate. I've never counted. I'm guessing that there's not 613 seeds in a pomegranate, but it's a nice idea. It's a nice thought. Okay, so but pomegranates, again, very popular. Your neck is like the Tower of David, tall and majestic. Sure, to have a nice elongated neck. And the breasts like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. I don't know what that. I can't help you with that one, But nonetheless, that's what we got here. Browsing amongst the lilies. So how are we going to make this about God and Israel? You are fair. Israel's spiritual beauty. That's what we're talking about here. Not physical beauty, spiritual beauty. Okay, get your mind out of the gutter. This is about spiritual beauty and about sacred, holy things. How dare you? So the idea of the fairness being emphasized twice, because it says like fair, you are fair. It's supposed to say, well, these are all the ways that Israel is fair, right? So Israel's fair because of the virtue of her observance of the commandments, and also just doing nice things once in a while, these impromptu acts of kindness, or our observance of the positive and negative commandments. See, fair, they're both important, that we do both at the same time. Commandments performed at home or in the field. Commandments are everywhere to do. Or the recitation of prayers. That's what this hall is all about. Yeah, it's all about Israel and the commandments and about our observance, again, spiritual beauty. What about the eyes? The eyes are like doves. Well, the eyes, they direct us towards our spiritual purpose. So we can look at things that aren't so great, but maybe we can see that God is everywhere, right? And every place that we look as an opportunity to observe, to understand something of divine significance, right? So that's why the eyes are there like doves. And doves, of course, doves are cool. Doves are very nice, but they're also symbols of spiritual and familial faithfulness. Doves mate for life, right? And so they're very loyal birds. And so just as the dove is loyal to its companion and to their families, right? Doves are very, I guess nurturing. I don't know. Much past, eating them. I'm not really a bird expert. But that being said, the tasty ones I know. But for the doves, they are, I guess, again, especially loyal, right? And especially, they're like a symbol of peace, obviously, as well, as we know. And so doves are seen as a really significant sort of symbol, in Jewish life and Jewish thought. Lips. Remember that lips, the crimson thread, your mouth is lovely. Because we sing songs of praise to God, like the Song of the Sea. So we have Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs that we're reading now, and Song of the Sea, right? That we have back in Exodus when the Israelites escaped from Egypt. And so our lips are lovely to sing praise. This was my favorite. I couldn't help it. Your breasts are like two fawns, because how can that be at all biblical? We're gonna find out right now, I'm telling you. So it's not talking about physical nourishment, right? It's not talking about sustaining in that way. It's spiritual nourishment that we're talking about here for future generations. Two sources: Torah and tradition, right? Torah and rabbinic interpretation, right? That's what we're talking about, really, when we talk about breasts are like two fawns. Torah and tradition. But it gets better, and I'm so happy that it does. The next part we have here, it refers to Moses and Aaron. I love it. Moses and Aaron. Just as breasts sustain a suckling with milk, these men sustained Israel with the teachings of Torah. If we believe that that's what the author actually intended when writing this book, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. I mean, my goodness gracious, but that is just spectacular. That they were able to create that reference here in such a way. There was also some ideas that it might be Miriam and Yocheved. At least it's feminine at that point. Miriam being Moses' sister and Yocheved, Moses' mother, right? And so at least we have there. And I'm just so happy. This is why I love Torah study. I was able to sort of do some reading today. It also says it refers to Sarah as well, because Sarah, they said, used to suckle foreigners and strangers who would come into the tent, and through her breast milk provided spiritual sustenance to people, and they would convert to Judaism through Sarah's milk. That she would be able to spiritually transform someone through the intimacy of that act, that they would become nourished, and then they would convert to Judaism. I love rabbinic midrashim. Spectacular. You'd have to be drunk to come up with that. But that being said, God bless them. They were able to get there. I just think these men, I mean, like in a Beit Midrash in a school somewhere, trying to think, what does this mean? Maybe it means that. Sure, Shlomo, it sounds great. Put it in the book. I don't know. But it's the joy of it. I mean, it makes Torah study more interesting. Okay. That was a little bit of a run. Okay, so let's go back to 6. When the day blows gently. Sharon, you want to pick that up here?
When the day blows gently and the shadows flee, I will betake me to the mount of myrrh, to the hill of frankincense. Every part of you is fair, my darling. There is no blemish in you. From Lebanon, come with me. From Lebanon, my bride with me. Trip down from Amana's peak, from the peak of Senir and Hermon, from the dens of lions, from the hills of leopards.
Yeah, and so here we go. Let's go back to that journeying together, right? This idea that these lovers, they want to be together and they want to sort of leave everything they know behind, and sort of go and just be with each other. And so this is sort of how it ends, with 7, that every part of you is fair, right? There is no blemish in you, which relates to the idea of God and Israel, right? And going, oh, you're so perfect. Like, we're perfect for each other. And now let's go and journey together, throughout the world. Let's just sort of leave and go and be with each other. It's very romantic, in its way. Now, of course, some extra here for us. Mount of Myrrh. We had this before. Take me to the Mount of Myrrh, to the hill of frankincense. With myrrh, they actually relate this to Abraham, and that Abraham was the most righteous person, and they tie in this metaphor of righteousness and sweet smelling, giving off a pleasant odor, right? Sort of like you think of lulav and etrog, and that the etrog, it smells really nice to represent good deeds, and good Torah. And so with myrrh, they sort of linked it to Abraham. This is a little rabbinic aside, that myrrh means Abraham, and so frankincense, Isaac, the Akedah, right? Because frankincense is often used in sacrifice, right? And so in Leviticus, we see that frankincense is sometimes used, for incense, and for concocting sort of different mixtures. And when you make the mincha sacrifice, frankincense is mixed in with some of the dough and whatever it is to burn it up, and it gives off a very sweet smell, right? So they say this is just like Abraham and Isaac. Sure, why not? That's tame compared to the rest of it, so I'll take it. Now this seems to be a little bit of a response. Okay, so Leah, you want to pick up over here on 9? Just gotta unmute.
You have captured my heart, my own, my bride. You have captured my heart with one glance of your eyes, with one coil of your necklace. How sweet is your love, my own, my bride. How much more delightful your love than wine, your ointments more fragrant than any spice. Sweetness drops from your lips, O bride. Honey and milk are under your tongue, and the scent of your robes is like the scent of Lebanon. A garden locked is my own, my bride, a fountain locked, a sealed up spring.
Okay, so this is sort of again the continued conversation in a way, and again, as we mentioned, there's a lot of physicality here. There's a lot of desire and longing for each other, and so we see she's captured his heart with just with one glance, with one look, with one I don't know what coil of your necklace means in this context, but I guess the idea is that she's just so beautiful, and so lovely that just one look and bam, that's what it is. And how sweet is your love, and then here we get some physicality here. Sweetness drops in your lips, honey under your tongue, the scent of your robes. Again, don't have to delve too far. She smells very pretty, and she is apparently a very wonderful kisser, right? And then we get to 12, which is a not so subtle allusion to chastity. Here, both for the female and the male, they had been chased for a little bit too long, perhaps, that they have been away from each other, and so the garden is locked, the fountain is locked, and now perhaps it is time to find some to unlock a little bit. Okay, so right now things are sort of blocked off, but that won't be the case forever, I think, for this couple. Okay, so with that beautiful visual, we can move ahead. Now we have here, captured my heart. That's God's response of praise. So, so she is so lovely and beautiful, and God's like, what, you've captured my heart, Israel. Israel, you're for me. You are meant for me, and I was meant for you. A little jewel, very nice song. So we have here, that moment, right, where they they sort of declare their love for each other. Their infatuation perhaps is better, as I mentioned last week. Love and lust here, maybe one shouldn't confuse. But that being said, for the rabbinical purposes, it's the idea that they're going to be in this loving relationship with each other. Bride, interesting words. Remember, I mentioned last week, it doesn't really talk about marriage so much, but the word bride does appear here, several times. It occurs 6 times in Song of Songs, in terms of that relationship, 4 times in the rest of the Bible. So just six here and 4 for the rest of the entirety. We do a little math. 6 plus 4 is 10, which is the 10 Commandments. Yay! I don't know why, but sure. It relates to the 10 Commandments, that because we are betrothed to God, perhaps through the 10 Commandments. Good. It's nice. As we mentioned about sexual chastity and spiritual purity, there's that link there in a way. Not so much in our tradition in the same way as other traditions, but it has this idea, certainly. Perhaps, chastity here would be here. It's that is more the feeling it gets, but more about, sacred partnership and relationship is probably how I think about it now. But there's a midrash that speaks about the Israelites when they were slaves in Egypt. And it says that one of the things that merited them redemption was that even in their state of where they were, of being sort of oppressed instead of having really a really bad time of it, to say the least, that they remained faithful to their partners, that they didn't go and seek out other partners while they were in Egypt. And so there's something about them being them showing fidelity to each other in their marital relationship was seen as very praiseworthy and part of the reason for redemption, right? That they were still with each other and they didn't sort of like assimilate into the Egyptian society and disappear. So there was something about that part helping merit redemption. Interesting. Again, I think, as we go through it, it's a hard sell to get me to believe that was the intended purpose from the author. But that being said, you get some interesting midrash from it. Okay, Debbie, you want to pick up here with your limbs? You got to unmute.
Okay. Your limbs are an orchard of pomegranates and of all luscious fruits, of henna and of nard and saffron, fragrant reed and cinnamon, with all aromatic woods, myrrh and aloes, all the choice perfumes. You are a garden of spring, a well of fresh water, a rill of Lebanon. Awake, O north wind, come, O south wind, blow upon my garden, that its perfume may spread. Let my beloved come to his garden, enjoy its luscious fruits.
Thank you. Really, without delving too far into the metaphors here, which I think are pretty self-explanatory in terms of the physical acts that are being described here. So, but again, that's what's here, right? This is sort of our romantic is probably not the right word. I really think erotic is the right word here, for what we're talking about. That's sort of this is the culmination, of this chapter. That now they're together, right? And now they've complimented each other. They've embraced each other, and now we're going to take it to that next level. If that last line, wasn't clear enough, right? About it, it's pretty clear. Enjoy is actually not even the right word. It really is. Let my beloved come to his garden and eat its luscious fruits. It's yeyachel. It's not enjoy. But I think the translator was trying to be a little bit more delicate. But with that said, that's where it is at the end of this. So of course, if you were the rabbis looking at this, you can't have that just be there. Like that doesn't work. And then you're gonna put white out. You have to sort of cross out some of this book so people can read it if it's going to be just about that. So, of course, it's about Messiah, Mashiach. Ay, 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 ay. Mashiach.
Wait on this.
And it's messianic promises. You know, there'll be a moment of what can be a better culmination. I'm trying to choose my words carefully here. A culmination to the romance between God and Israel, right? Then the appearance of the Messiah, right? And so that in the rabbinic mind, like that would be the greatest sort of moment, right? The greatest expression of devotion and pleasure is that when the Messiah sort of comes, and you know, the garden, of course, is Israel or the temple, what have you. You know, the metaphor there can be used that either way. But that the exiles will come from the north and the south, you know, and they will come back to Israel, and they will recreate the Israelite kingdom, Beit Hamikdash, you know, the holy temple, all these spices, and then, you know, as you do for the incense, you know, and so that's where they're going with this, is that this isn't about sex as much as it's about the messianic redemption, you know, that will be there in the future. Sure, again, works for, it's nice, you know, but God bless rabbinic Judaism to give us some of this interpretation. So, okay, so that is the end of that chapter, so to speak. And so now let's just pick up a little bit. We have about 10 minutes. So let's just give this last chapter a little bit of a read. Linda White, you want to pick up?
I have come to my garden, my own, my bride. I have plucked my myrrh and spice, eat my honey and honeycomb, drunk my wine and my milk, eat, lovers, and drink deep of love. I was asleep, but my heart was wakeful. Hark, my beloved knocks. Let me in, my own, my darling, my faultless dove, for my head is drenched with dew, my locks with the damp of night.
Okay, and so he's making a late night visit. I believe perhaps the term is what's it called? Oh, a booty call, perhaps now at this point. Anyway, so that's I think what we have here. That she's she's relaxing. It's been a long day. She there and all of a sudden knock on the door. It's her gentleman caller, right? And he's out there. He's schwitzing. It's been a hot day. He's a little sweaty from just the day. I don't have to paint you a picture. Okay, so it's there. And Sharon, you want to pick up here on 3?
I had taken off my robe. Was I to don it again? I had bathed my feet. Was I to soil them again? My beloved took his hand off the latch, and my heart was stirred for him. I rose to let in my beloved. My hands dripped myrrh, my fingers flowing myrrh upon the handles of the bolt. I opened the door for my beloved, but my beloved had turned and gone. I was faint because of what he said. I sought, but found him not. I called, but he did not answer.
Oh, so a little bit sad there, right? And so he was there, and she's comfortable. She's in bed. She's again maybe watching a little TV to relax a little bit. Maybe reading a nice book. Out of the shower. She's nice and clean. And now she's like, oh yeah, someone's at the door. She has to get herself ready. And so while she's sort of anointing a little bit and getting herself in position to receive a guest, so to speak, he left. He sort of like got tired of sort of waiting around, and he's gone, which is weird. And so then she has to go look for him again, right? She has to go search. Leah, you want to check it out? Got to unmute there.
I met the watchmen who patrol the town. They struck me, they bruised me. The guards of the wall stripped me of my mantle. I adjure you, O maidens of Jerusalem, if you meet my beloved, tell him this, that I am faint with love. How is your beloved better than another, O fairest of women? How is your beloved better than another that you adjure us so?
Okay, and so we have here a split in voice, right? So the first two verses are our protagonist female, and then 9 and is going to be that Greek chorus. It's going to be sort of the women of the city. So she's looking for him. Has a rough go. Sort of the watchmen of the town aren't very nice to her, to say the least. And she's like, "Look, if you find my beloved, you find him, tell him that I'm waiting for him. I'm heartsick, for his love. I want to find him." And they say, "Well, what's so good about your guy here? Why is he so wonderful? How is he better than the other man that's out there?" And so now she's gonna tell us why. Debbie, tell us why.
My, okay. My beloved is clear-skinned and ruddy, preeminent among 10,000. His head is fine as gold, his locks are curled and black as raven. His eyes are like doves of watercourses bathed in milk, set by a brimming pool. His cheeks are like beds of spices, banks of perfume. His lips are like lilies. They drip flowing myrrh. His hands are rods of gold, studded with beryl, his belly a tablet of ivory, adorned with sapphires. His legs are like marble pillars set in sockets of fine gold. He is majestic as Lebanon, stately as the cedars. His mouth is delicious, and all of him is delightful. Such is my beloved, such is my darling, O maidens of Jerusalem.
Okay, so as he had described her earlier, she's going to describe him. If you'll notice, there was an Egyptian form of love poetry called a wasaf. And the wasaf, one of the features of it, aside from the use of simile, is that it would describe somebody from head to toe. And so you'll see here is that similarity, right? So it starts with his head and his hair, are curled and black like a raven. Then the eyes, are like doves, cheeks, like beds of spices. Down one more, lips. It was a lot of time on the face. Lips are like lilies. And then we get down to hands. Hands are rods of gold, studded with beryl. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds nice. I'll take it. It certainly sounds better than goats. I will say that, like goats and ewes. She's she's using a little bit more metal and a little more precious materials here. His belly a tablet of ivory adorned with sapphires. I gotta say it's probably a complicated way of saying he has a six-pack, but I don't know. But that would be my way of reading that. Marble pillars set in sockets of fine gold, legs, hips. Thinking of head, shoulders, knees, and toes right now. One too many nursery rhymes with the kids. So yeah, his legs are like marble pillars, and then it skips up at 16 back to mouth. But I think that's sort of where the poem ends, is 15, and then it gives us 16 again. The mouth is delicious. All of him is delightful.
Rabbi,
Not bad.
what strikes me? They ask her, what is so different or better about him than anyone else? And then it has nothing to do with he is kind, he is caring, he loves family, he loves his family, he's good to his mother. Nothing about that. Nothing.
Yeah, because that ain't what this is about.
Yeah, I know.
That's exactly right. No, but you hit that really good point, right? Is that they aren't really talking about really anything in this book other than physicality, right? This is, and that's why I say it's really less about love, so to speak.
Yeah.
It is about desire and physical attraction. Like these two just want to get with each other, right? And be with each other. And it can be couched in some different terminology, but you certainly just get that image of these two just really wanting to be with each other physically. They're really digging each other. That's what they're talking about. Now, who knows what might grow after that? But this, at least, talking about that immense sort of physical attraction that almost leads to that longing, right? It's rending when they can't find each other, you know, that they're gone from each other, and they know we gotta find them, we gotta find her, we gotta be together. It's very evocative, and again has a lot of sort of intimacy in there as well.
So how did they compare that to Israel? Just Israel's physical,
Whenever it's physical, it then transitions to a spiritual
Israel.
beauty, you
Mhm.
know, and that we're precious, like these different precious stones and
Mhm.
you know, this finery, you know, that's what we are, or that's what God is, depending on who's
Mhm.
doing the talking, right? And so they usually make that comparison from physical beauty to spiritual piety, and observance of commandments and all that other good stuff. And you know, to read this and get from it is it talks about how we should all observe commandments. I think is a stretch to say the least, but
Yeah.
and I tease about it, but I mean, but the reality is that it does show a sense of creativity that I think is actually pretty cool. That they can take a work like this. The way I think about it is that they found this text. You know, this text had been written, right? And then when they were deciding to canonize the Bible, you know, like this text, I think they saw in it so much beauty and so much passion, and understood that that's part of the human condition, right? That's part of who we are, is that we want to have passion in our lives. And I think they found it beautiful, and it had become part, I would guess, of the Israelite. Um, it's almost like something that was, well, almost like, I don't compare it to Shakespeare, but something that had become culturally important and relevant to them at that time. And so somewhere there had to be a jump, right, from a culturally relevant, sort of well-known, important, beloved text to a sacred text. There had to be a jump somewhere. And so I think that once they had sort of decided this text is so important and so beautiful and so meaningful that we're going to include it in the Hebrew Bible, it then a couple hundred years later left the rabbis with sort of a problem, you know, because it was already sort of included, it was already in the canon. But the later rabbis looked at this and went, you know, because maybe their cultural experience was different by then. You know, it's a few hundred years later, so maybe they didn't have that same understanding of the text and why they put it in. So they had to almost reinvent. They had to what's it called? They had to sort of go back and justify it. They have to almost reverse engineer it. That's what I wanted. So they have to say, okay, well, we have this text, and it's clearly important and it's clearly awesome. What is it about? Because I'm looking at a lot of talk here that doesn't very seem in keeping with the greater context of the Hebrew Bible. And so they went, I got it. God in Israel, you know, and to square it with everything else. And the fact that they were able to do that, much like, frankly, I think the story of Esther, the fact that they were able to sort of do that and sort of create something else out of the story and out of the poetry, I think it's just a testament to the creativity of the
Yeah.
rabbis. And I think a testament of how beautiful the work really is, because I mean, I have to assume there were probably discussions, you know, even if it was post facto, but some discussions about what do we want to do with this book? You know, we have it. I don't know. But they said, no, you know what? We're going to keep it. We're going to keep it because it's beautiful, and let's find some different ways to interpret it, and sort of make it maybe a little more spiritual than physical. I think it works.
Did it?
Yeah, they did it. You're right.
It was not an easy task either.
No, it was not an easy task. I would dare say it was not an easy task. Um, Fantastic. So just as a calendar update, today is the 12th. On the 19th, we got Bible study again. And on the 26th, that's going to be our Tu B'Shvat program. And so we're going to use this time for that sort of bigger Tu B'Shvat experience. I think we pretty much I think we've mined Song of Songs for I think everything that it's gonna have. There's a little left, but I mean, but I think we've gotten there with it. And so, what's next after Song of Songs?
What is that?
Ruth. Ruth is
Ah,
next.
okay.
I'll tell you, the hits keep coming. Yeah, because biblical cycle, right? So Passover, we do Song of Songs. Next holiday is Shavuos, when we do Ruth. And so, so that was our first Megillah, our first scroll, right? Was Passover, because that was considered the first of the year, right? Also, so we have that's the Exodus from Egypt. So that's part of how they date it. It's one of the 4 New Years. So it starts Song of Songs, Ruth, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, and then finally with Esther for the Chamesh Megillot, the 5 scrolls of Judaism. And so we can move on to another scroll, Ruth. I love the scrolls so much. I just, aside from, of course, Torah and the 5 books. I'm going to say including Torah in the 5 books, actually, if I'm going to be honest with myself. The 5 scrolls are probably my favorite part of the biblical literature. I think they're just spectacular. There's not a loser among them. I mean, they're just fantastic works. And so we did Ecclesiastes and we did Song of Songs, and now we get to Ruth, and then a little in-depth. Lamentations is a bummer, but but that being said, it's interesting. But the rest of them are pretty fun reads.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Ruth next week.
Sounds good.
Okay. I will see you all sooner than later.
Thank
Everyone
you.
stay
Thank
well
you.
and stay safe, okay?
You too. Thank you.
You too.
Bye.